For as long as I can remember, one of my favorite genres of any kind of video game has been the platformer. It was basically what gave me my start in gaming. Donkey Kong was one of the first arcade games I remember playing, and I had a Smurf game on my Colecovision that I am pretty sure was a platformer. I haven't played it since I was 6, so forgive me. But the NES is really what changed it. That's what started off. What's going on, everybody? I'm Jay, welcome to Square Pegs, and truly, I am just so fortunate that all of you beautiful people are here. And today I wanted to talk to you about 10 fantastic platformers on 10 different consoles. I haven't done one of these in a minute, so I figured we'd go back to it. Now this is going to be a list where it's really hard to avoid big ticket games. Ones that are kind of signature members of the genre. But I'm going to do my best to kind of dodge around that a little bit. But sandwiched on this list are going to be two spectacularly big games. And we're going to start off with the first one here. This is from the Sega CD. This is Sonic CD. And this was one of the first games, if not the first game, I picked up when I got my Sega CD. I picked this up at CorgsCon a couple of years ago. I had just gotten my Sega CD, and I needed to have this game because I had never played it before. And being able to play it now is truly a privilege because the game is spectacular. Yeah, when I got a Sega CD, the first thing I wanted to get was Sonic CD. Well, that's not true. The first thing I wanted to get was Lunar and Lunar 2, but I haven't taken out the mortgage to get those yet because, you know, those are not cheap games. But this one here, Sonic CD, is such a fantastic title. I found this at Corgs. It's the first convention I'd ever been a guest at, so it is kind of special in that regard to me as well. But the gameplay itself is just magnificent. Being able to kind of bounce to the future and bounce to the past, having the levels alter and change, and the music. Oh my god, the music in this game is just so good. This is such a quality Sonic experience. I can't recommend it enough for folks to play this one. So yeah, Sonic CD, absolutely spectacular game. One of my favorite experiences on the Sega CD, on a console I really enjoy collecting for and really enjoy playing games on. But now we're going to jump over to Nintendo's first handheld console. I'm not talking about Game & Watch, I'm talking about the Game Boy. And we're talking about something that my friend Thor helped me complete. Now, I'm going to show you the complete in-box copy I have, and the strangest thing about this is I didn't start off with a cartridge. I started off with the box, the inserts, the manual, and everything that goes with it, but I never had the game until Thor sent it to me. And it is Wario Land Super Mario Land 3. Now, this is a fantastic game. This is the first time we're introduced to Wario as a protagonist. And it's not like every other protagonist that you've ever played with. It's something entirely different. This is Wario at his absolute greediest, at his absolute nastiest, and it's fantastic. Wario Land Super Mario Land 3 is one of those games that I remember playing when I was younger and just loving it, and then just kind of forgetting about it. And then I got rid of it, and I regretted it immediately. And the story behind this game is when my wife used to work at GameStop, and before they were starting to take in retro titles, someone came in and wanted to trade in a bunch of Game Boy games, and my wife said, we can't take those. And they actually ended up leaving behind the case for Wario Land, and they never came back for it. So it sat there for a couple of weeks until my wife said, well, I'm just going to bring it home. Maybe Jay will want it. And it sat on my shelf. It was just a really cool looking piece, a really cool looking item in the game room. I met Thor 3.5 years ago at the Midwest Gaming Classic, and I told him I was looking for Wario Land Super Mario Land 3 because I needed to complete this thing complete in box. And we went all over the Midwest Gaming Classic trying to find it, and we never landed it. We could never find it. And then a couple of years later, he didn't forget. He kept looking for it until he found it at his local shop over in Minneapolis. And he sent it to me, and that is why I have a complete in-box copy. It's because of my friend Thor, and I can't thank him enough for it. A little bit platformer, a little bit puzzle game. Wario Land Super Mario Land 3 is a fantastic title, one of my favorites. I typically talk about games in this series from very early in its release window, but today I want to actually reference the last one that was released on the NES, and that is Mega Man 6. Now, to some, Mega Man 6 is, I don't want to say the worst entry in the series, but it's a little bit different than anything else. But as I've pointed out before, a bad Mega Man game is better than a lot of good series games. And Mega Man 6, while it's probably my least favorite on the NES, I do think the game is brilliant. Now, Mega Man 6 is a bit of a different experience. I think it is probably the weakest experience on the NES. It's still a great game though, like I said. Like the worst Mega Man game is better than most series' best effort. And I really think it's a fun title. There's some really clever bosses that are also a little bit silly. Like you have normal bosses that you'd expect, like Flame Man or Blizzard Man. But then you get people like Tomahawk Man or Centaur Man. It's a little weird, it's a little ridiculous, and I mean, when Mega Man's being ridiculous, that's kind of when Mega Man's at his best. It's still a fantastic experience, and it's still a wonderful game to play. A little bit different than standard platforming fare. That one is a bit more of a run and gun, and you do get to choose your way through the levels as opposed to actually just going level by level consecutively, but I do think Mega Man 6 is worthy of being on this list, and one of my favorite experiences, just period, because, I mean, it's Mega Man. It's classic Mega Man. You can't go wrong with it. All right, we're going to hop now to the most modern release on this list, and this is on the Nintendo Switch, and this is from a company that I adore. This is from SteamWorld, and I love every SteamWorld game that's been released. SteamWorld Heist was a fantastic turn-based strategy. SteamWorld Quest was a take on deck-building RPGs. Now we have SteamWorld Build, which is a take on the Minecraft genre, and this here is SteamWorld Dig 2, which is a wonderful version of a Metroidvania platformer that is just ridiculously charming with so much fun gameplay and just such a vast and fully lived-in world to experience. I appreciate the SteamWorld series so much, and this entry here is magnificent. The first SteamWorld game introduced us to Rusty, and SteamWorld Dig 2 has us on his trail trying to track him down. It's a charming game with magnificent gameplay that if you haven't played before, the entire idea is in the title. You dig. You're a robot that digs through the ground trying to make your way through different levels, and as you go, you're going to encounter enemies, you're going to find resources, you're going to find different rooms that you have to go through and activate and discover treasures and abilities and accessories. It's a really interesting take on a Metroidvania that SteamWorld, the original, kind of perfected, but this one just carries that perfection forward with a more compelling storyline. Truly one of my favorite experiences on the Nintendo Switch, one of my favorite games. I do love the SteamWorld series. I haven't disliked any SteamWorld game I've played so far. Dig 2 is one of the best. In most cases, the Xbox 360 is well known for things like first-person shooters, racing games, third-person shooters, third-person action games, but decidedly not for platformers. And this one here is a release from one of my favorite developers, from WayForward. It features an IP that I adore in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, from a version that is actually my favorite version of the Ninja Turtles, the 2013 series. And this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Danger of the Use. Now, while a lot of critics didn't care for this game, me personally, I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fantastic title, a wonderful version of the Ninja Turtles that just worked. It was fun, the animations were great, and the voice acting is spectacular. I think I kind of gushed enough about this in the intro with it being a WayForward 2D platformer starring the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but don't care. Love it. This was not critically well received. It was actually pretty well bagged on, but for me, I don't look for something starring the Turtles to be like this huge cultural landmark. I just look for a fun experience, and it's WayForward. It crushes it. It's so much fun. This is also on the 3DS and a bunch of other consoles as well, but it's still just a great experience no matter where you go with it. There was actually this core time around when this one released where WayForward was releasing a lot of licensed games. They did this, they did the Mighty Thor, and they're all fantastic. This just happens to be the one I prefer on the 360. There are going to be 2 entries from Mario on this list, but first up I want to feature one from the Wii that is truly important and has done so much to inspire games down the road that I love, and that is Super Paper Mario. Now, Super Paper Mario is a really clever entry because it makes use of both 2D and 3D, but it remains on a 2D planar level. It just depends on how you're looking at it. It takes the paper effect really well. I love this game because it helped inspire one of my favorite Switch games, Carl, and if I had it physically, that would be on this list because I think it's absolutely brilliant. If you haven't played it, check out my review on screen right now and be sure to pick it up on the eShop. Actually, everywhere it's available, because it's available everywhere. It's wonderful. It's developed by Andrew Kennedy, aka Nintendo, fellow YouTuber. He's a wonderful guy, one of the kindest people I've ever met. And Super Paper Mario helped be an inspiration, one of the inspirations for Carl. There's so much to love about Super Paper Mario, and this one kind of does get in as a technicality on being a 2D platformer because it's also decidedly three-dimensional as you're able to flip the level around and move forward as kind of the flat Stanley version of Mario. But it just works. It's fantastic. It's so much fun, and knowing what I know about this game and the experience I had with it and how much of a touchstone moment it was for me the first time I played it, to experience those same feelings again when I first played Carl was astonishing to me. I told Drew when he and I met how much it felt like Super Paper Mario, and he was so happy that I picked up on that. And that was a really cool experience. This is such a fantastic game. Alright, from Super Paper Mario to another Nintendo IP, and one that's a little bit forgotten. This is actually a DS release, and a game that I think is absolutely brilliant, and I wish we had gotten more of these released in the States. And it is the legendary Starfy. Now, if you haven't played the legendary Starfy, this is a platform that takes place under the sea. But you don't get to play as Sebastian, you play as a little starfish, and it's just a cute, adorable, and fun game that is perfectly well designed. A balanced challenge. It's not too hard, but it's not too easy. It's just a really fun experience. Now, when I say the legendary Starfy is probably the least challenging game on this list, it's 100% true, because it is essentially a kid's game, but the core gameplay experience that you're going to have with legendary Starfy is fantastic, because it's a little bit Kirby, actually, now that I'm kind of thinking about it. You're going to find different suits that you're going to be able to turn into to use the abilities of the enemies. The 2 screens on the console are used ridiculously well. It's just a really fun experience. There have been a ton of Starfy games released over in Japan. This is the only one we've gotten in the States, and it's worth tracking down. Up next is one of my favorite games, period. This was one that I used to play on the Master System at my friend Peter's house. I had the NES, he had the Master System, and he used to have family in Europe that would send him games. And this was one of them, and being a huge Disney fan, I knew that the Lucky Dime Caper starring Donald Duck was something that I was going to adore. Now, this particular copy means a lot to me because this was a gift from a dear friend, and Gary from Rock Solid Productions. He found a copy of this for me on eBay, he picked it up for me and shipped it to me, and this is truly one of my holy grail items. The Lucky Dime Caper starring Donald Duck is just 8-bit perfection to me. It's the epitome of what the Sega Master System does well. It does everything perfectly well. The music is good, the graphics are fantastic, the gameplay is exciting, it's challenging while not being so hard that you can't win. It just lands it. It's such a fantastic game, and for Gary to go out of his way to pick this up for me was so meaningful and just so special to me, and I can't thank him enough for it, because to have this complete in box in my collection is huge. This will never be lost. It's that important to me. I can't help it. I'm a huge Disney fan, and I love Donald Duck. And the Lucky Dime Caper starring Donald Duck was kind of a precursor to DuckTales on the NES, sort of. It feels very similar in a lot of ways, while being wildly different at the same time. Now, I want to go back to WayForward. They are probably my favorite independent developer, and they did such incredible work with the Shantae series, which is one of my favorite series of games ever. And the one that I want to talk about is released on the 3DS, and that is Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. Now, the thing I love about this game is that WayForward took a chance. It wasn't a formulaic Shantae experience, because rather than having all of her spells and all of her shapeshifting abilities and things like that, you actually had to go to different levels and find items that helped you gain powers and abilities. And I thought that was really clever, and the work they did with the 3D in the game is just stunningly beautiful. It's such a fantastic release. It's just perfect. Now, you can get this on a lot of different consoles. The gameplay experience is very similar, although in the 3DS you do get that 3D kind of visual, so be sure to check it out there if you have a chance. I always enjoy games like Shantae and the Pirate's Curse when they decide to turn the series on its head a little bit, and this one teams you up with Risky Boots, who has been the antagonist throughout the entire series thus far, and you're trying to help her eliminate this pirate threat that's coming. And I don't want to get too in detail with spoilers. I mean, it is an older game at this point, but it goes about as well as you'd expect. The relationship is, we can say, strained. I think strained is a good word here. But the gameplay is top-notch. It's a fantastic game, and again, the 3D on the 3DS version should not be missed. It is magnificent. It is more expensive than other versions of the game, but this is one of those cases where I think it's actually worth it because of how good of a game it is and how signature of an experience it is with the 3D interface. Yeah, I love Shantae. It's one of my favorite games, one of my favorite franchises, and Shantae and the Pirate's Curse is one of my favorite games. I don't think you can go wrong with Pirate's Curse, Half Genie Hero, or Seven Sirens. All three of them are magnificent titles. All three of them are perfect. They're kind of a 1A, 1B, 1C. And my preference kind of varies day by day. I said the other day that Seven Sirens was my favorite, and today it's kind of Pirate's Curse. But that brings us to our final game, and it is probably the biggest game on this list. And it is my favorite core Mario experience. And I am saying that taking Super Mario Bros. 2 out of the equation, which is my personal favorite Mario game. And I'm taking that out because it is not an original Mario game. It is Doki Doki Panic. It's just been overskinned with Mario stuff. But my favorite Mario experience in a 2D platformer is Super Mario World. I remember playing this for the first time and being just utterly blown away by how incredible of an experience it was. I loved Mario 3. I still do. I still think it's a fantastic game, but everything that Mario 3 did, Super Mario World excelled at and did better. The thing I loved the most about Super Mario World was just the absolutely fantastic attention to detail and everything. The shading on the characters, the different designs of the characters that made everything look more alive, more accessible, and more interesting than what we had experienced in the NES releases. It really showed what the SNES was capable of, and I think that's something that shouldn't be overlooked or ignored. It's a great game on its own merit, but the fact that this also operated as something that really introduced the SNES to the world is truly impressive. There you have it, my friends. My favorite platformers on 10 different consoles, 10 platformers on 10 different consoles. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree with my assessments, if you disagree. I would love to hear from you what your favorite platformers are that I did not list today, because honestly, there's so many out there, and so many I haven't had the chance to play. Like the Switch alone, I probably could have done just a list of 15 to 20 platformers that are fantastic. I might have actually done that video in the past. I don't remember. I've done like 500 at this point, so forgive me if I forget. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree or disagree. If you're new around here, hey, please consider subscribing. I'm on the road to 10,000 subscribers. I would love to have you guys stick around. And until next time, remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.